One of Canada's first astronauts, Bjarni Tryggvason devoted himself to the advancement of aviation in Canada over nearly a 5-decade career. Born in Reykjavik, Iceland in 1945, Bjarni Tryggvason and his family emigrated to Canada in 1953, eventually settling in British Columbia. At the age of 12, Bjarni learned of the successful launch of the Soviet satellite Sputnik, an event that sparked a lifelong interest in aviation. "I remember that day very clearly," he recalled. "The world was one day an ordinary place where you did ordinary things, and the next day it was radically different." After joining the Royal Canadian Air Cadets, Bjarni's love for aviation solidified. He used his summer job money to pay for flying lessons. His goal? Become an airline pilot. He advanced quickly and earned his commercial pilot wings by age 20. After high school, Bjarni attended the University of British Columbia, where he took engineering physics and earned a BSc in 1972. He then accepted a position with the Atmospheric Environmental Service in Toronto, where he trained as a meteorologist, specifically focusing on cloud physics. 2 years after graduating, Bjarni's research took him next to the University of Western Ontario, at the Boundary Layer Wind Tunnel, where he focused on industrial aerodynamics, and then to the University of Tokyo in Japan, and James Cook University in North Queensland, Australia. Upon returning to Canada, Bjarni joined the National Research Council's Low-Speed Aerodynamics Laboratory in 1982, and took on lectureships at the University of Ottawa and Carleton University. By now, Bjarni no longer expected to become an airline pilot, but he kept involved with aviation at the Rockcliffe Flying Club, where he instructed as well as flying aerobatics with the Ottawa chapter of Aerobatics Canada. Unexpectedly, however, a new opportunity to work in aviation soon presented itself. The Canadian government launched its astronaut program in 1983. Bjarni was one of thousands to apply. When the results of the selection process were announced that December, more than 25 years after learning of Sputnik's launch, Bjarni was thrilled to be chosen as one of 6 founding members of Canada's new astronaut corps. With the NRC and the Canadian Space Agency, he helped work on multiple projects. These included the Space Vision System target spacecraft and the design and development of vibration isolation systems, the latter being one of his primary focuses. A first effort to eliminate vibration was the Large Motion Isolation Mount. Next came the smaller Microgravity Vibration Isolation Mount, MIM, which was designed for spaceflight and installed aboard Russia's Mir space station. Another was the Microgravity Vibration Isolation Subsystem, MVIS, used on the International Space Station in the European Space Agency Columbus Laboratory Module. On August 7, 1997, 14 years after joining Canada's space program, Bjarni climbed aboard Space Shuttle Discovery as the payload specialist for NASA's STS-85, a mission designed for space science and hardware testing for use on the ISS. For Bjarni, the most important experiment carried that mission was the MIM-2, a more refined version of the MIM first deployed on the Mir, which was operated for approximately 30 hours, involving real-time data transmission to Earth.
Here's the view of myself working with the microgravity vibration isolation mount. This work is really designed to better understand some of the challenges we face with doing sensitive fluid physics, material science, and crystal growth experiments on the space station. Many of these will be affected by the vibrations of station, and MIM, which is the little purple thing, lower half of that double enclosure just in front of me, actually is a magnetic levitation system that will isolate many of these experiments from the vibrations of the station. On this flight, we were looking at 2 different things. One, how well MIM works as an isolator and how clean an environment it can provide to the experiments. And then using the MIM with the experiments mounted on top of it, looking at the effect of the vibrations on the experimental results, both for isolated situation and sometimes running in non-isolation mode, and sometimes using MIM to actually vibrate the experiment with controlled acceleration levels.
After the mission's success, Bjarni continued at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, assisting the team operating the Space Shuttle flight simulator. From 2001 on, he began to step away from the space program, taking a series of leaves to re-engage with university research and to enter the private sector, before finally retiring from the space program in 2008. Back at Western, Bjarni joined the Department of Mechanical and Materials Engineering and continued to work on vibration isolation technology. Leaving the space program did not mean he stopped flying, however. Having worked on the most advanced spacecraft, Bjarni shifted gears and began to engage with Canada's aviation heritage by flying vintage aircraft. He joined the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association, and he also began working with the builders of the replica of the Silver Dart, helping them test the aircraft design in the lead-up to flying the replica on the 22nd of February, 2009. Thereafter, Bjarni taught at the International Test Pilot School in London, Ontario, where he flew the L-29 and L-39 jet trainers. He remained an active pilot for more than a decade, flying his Pitt Special, the Chaw Harvards, and, in 2019, the Jet Aircraft Museum's T-33, decked out in the livery of the Red Knight. Bjarni Tryggvason passed away in 2022. In recognition of his contributions to aeronautics, he was awarded 3 honorary degrees, the NASA Flight Medal, and Iceland's Order of the Falcon. For his commitment to the advancement of Canadian aerospace and testing, and for his contributions to the preservation of Canada's aviation heritage, Bjarni Tryggvason was nominated to Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame in 2019 and inducted at ceremonies held in 2022.